Hello sugar dumplings, welcome back to my channel. This video has a sponsor. I am so grateful to Skillshare for sponsoring me. I never actually thought that Skillshare would sponsor someone with my kind of content, so I really appreciate it, and I was really surprised when they got in touch and asked me quite a while ago now if I would like to do some videos with them, and then they asked me again, so I was like, this is brilliant because I love Skillshare and I get to have Skillshare as a consequence of them sponsoring me, and I want to explain to you how you can get a free trial with Skillshare later in the video and the point of doing that, because there is a really rather large juicy point to doing that, let me tell you. So I'll get into that later. So first of all, I want to apologise today, darlings, if I seem like I'm in a weird mood. I am in a weird mood. But I tried to film this video yesterday and I was in a weird mood yesterday as well. So I figure, you know what, maybe I'm just going through a bit of a weird phase right now where I'm not quite sure about the camera and we're having a bit of a thing. But I'm just going to go ahead and film anyway because I want to tell you 10 things. I've been thinking about this for a while. I want to tell you 10 things, 10 mindsets, let's say, that have helped me in my practice. They've helped me to keep my cool and not lose my shit and carry on doing what I'm doing as a witchcraft practitioner. So I want to share with you these 10 things that have helped me so much over the course of time. And if I seem a bit weird while I'm doing it, well, the content is kind of weird in its own way anyway, so it's fine, we'll just go with it. Weirdness is the theme today. Number one of the 10 things that definitely help me when it comes to continuously practicing witchcraft, practicing magic, all that stuff without getting hung up on anything and without feeling like I'm not allowed to do that, is that the small stuff is truly big. The small stuff is truly big. I definitely have gone through a lot of different phases when I was younger in my practice where I wanted everything to be big and flowery and really flamboyant and extravagant, and I wanted everything to be cinematic, and I wanted every step to be bigger than the last step. I felt like that was the only way it was truly going to work, truth be told. I thought that things would only work if they looked like the opening scene of The Craft, is how I always try and say it, you know, like cinematic, moody, loads of things everywhere, and everything just feeling like it had that iconic quality. And what I recognize is that this is not my experience in terms of what has really been fruitful and meaningful and gorgeous for me in life. Yes, I have had big cinematic, beautiful moments, okay, at festivals, and I've had big spiritual experiences that were like next level, and I have done very flowery spells and rituals and stuff. But there's also been an incredible amount of times in my life where something really seemingly small and insignificant happened, insignificant in the way of consensus, you know, that people would pass it by or think it was tiny, and it had a huge impact on me. And so I know from experience that just the tiniest little seemingly insignificant thing can send a huge tidal ripple through my personal cosmos and can make massive resounding change. And so why wouldn't the same be true in spellcraft and ritual? Why shouldn't something be simple, easy, quick, to the point, you know, maybe something that you would overlook, but it has this huge impact. It creates something so momentous. I think it's really interesting how big an effect such a small change or such a small flourish can have on me, like putting on a particular song, for example, putting on a particular shirt or necklace, you know, hearing a word or a phrase that's repeated and you recognize like, oh wow, that's a synchronicity, I've noticed that a few times. You know, just really the smallest little things can shift me in my perspective, in my sense of power, in my sense of possibility, and different little flourishes and changes can make big things happen, you know? I notice a lot with enclothed cognition, for example, that the way I dress affects the way I feel, it affects what I feel I can do, it affects what I actually do. And it's just really the choice between one dress or another. It's just really interesting to me. I think that I've had times in my practice, and I know many of you are the same, where I've planned a spell and where I've done a spell in a lot of cases, and I've thought, is that going to work? Is that all it should be? Should it have been more? Should I have gone bigger? Is it possible that something could work like that when it's just really not got that big cinematic wow factor, that huge kind of like undeniable quality to it? But actually loads of things in my life are not technically cinematic, but have had a huge impact on me. Just something that somebody said to me, you know, randomly, a stranger, a kindness that somebody gave to me in that moment where I really needed it, something that pulled me out of a pit, that anyone else would overlook, but I knew that it meant something. It was special to me. I remember when I was a teenager, I was on my way back from a corn gig in London, obviously. Obviously, you can rely on me, darlings. I was on my way back from a corn gig with a friend, and we were talking to some other people that had been to the gig, and they said, how far do you have to go to get home now? And we said, well, it's actually quite a long walk and there's no street lights. It's actually a really scary walk from the station back to town, but it was way too late to like get anyone to pick us up. And we were like, we'll be okay, we're together. But yeah, it is like a pitch black walk down a long road. And this guy that I was talking to produced out of his pocket a tiny plastic alien wearing a karate outfit, like the white outfit with the black belt. It was a black belt karate alien. And it was teeny. And he gave it to me and he said, take this guy with you and he'll keep you safe. I still have that alien. That guy gave that alien to me when I was like 15 or 16 years old. I'm now in my late 30s. I still have that alien. All right. That alien is on my altar all the time. I don't even take him anywhere because I'm so precious about him, because that was such a tiny little random, beautiful thing that just came out of this guy's mind. And it was probably just a funny joke to him, like, oh yeah, take this karate alien with you and he'll keep you safe. But in my mind at that moment, that guy was a fucking chaos mage. And he still, to this day, wherever you are, kind sir, you are a chaos mage. I actually felt safer. I was like, oh my God, this is a talisman. This is an amulet. This is a protection device. And I've kept it ever since. You know, it had a massive, massive, massive impact on me. Just this little thing. I was like, that means something. The meaning is what you choose to apply to it. The little touches count for so much. The little things that you do for people and people do for you count for so much. That little like opening or closing of the curtain to a certain degree to get the perfect light. Don't laugh, because I know that there's never the perfect light in any of my videos, okay? I'm not a lighting person, clearly, and I guess I don't care. I'm not here to be aesthetic, all right? I'm just here to talk about the craft. Yeah, you know, just those little touches where you're like, I need a little bit of something here. You know, this room could do with a certain something. You know, you're weaving an atmosphere in that moment. Why is it not the same in your spells? Why would it not be the same in your rituals? Just those little things. It doesn't need to be next level. Just the small little things. Have you ever tried doing a spell with no music and then doing a spell while you're listening to The Cure? I mean, huge difference. And all you've got to do is put your speaker on and listen to The Cure while you're doing the spell, but it makes all the difference. It's just those little things, you know. That's where the sort of the impact really lives. It's not in trying to make something like next level cinematic, because life is next level cinematic. You know, we shouldn't be striving. We should be just embracing what is here now. I mean, you can strive if you want, but believe me, it stopped me from doing a lot of workings when I was younger, because I was like, no, it's not gonna, no, it's just measly, it's little, it's not gonna do anything. It does though, doesn't it? It does make a difference. You can weave magic that way. It can be super simple. You don't need any props. I think that's really potent. Number 2 mindset that is very helpful: feel into what matters. And by that, I mean what matters to you or what matters to me, right? Like, you can tune into a wider culture, a broader idea. You can tune into science, you can tune into art, you can tune into astrology and what's going on there, but also tune into the huge, vast cosmos inside of you. You have a personal mythology inside you. You have a culture going on inside of you all the time that is woven through you. You have this really intricate and ever-changing and ever-growing and building textured tapestry inside of you. And that stuff is so important. And it's a one-time thing in the whole of the space-time continuum, as far as we know. You know, it's yours. It's yours. It will die with you. It's so special because of that. It's beautiful to feel like I'm tuned into something bigger, but it's also really important when I recognize my own mythology and my own internal system that has been created purely just through who I am in space and time. Your dreams matter. Your private jokes with people matter. Your favourite films matter. The shape of your lover's birthmark in the morning light matters. It's all your personal world, and no one else has access to all the different threads that tie that stuff together. So yes, this bigger conversation and these traditions and these different ideas that have come through the occult and come through, you know, anything else you're interested in, they're amazing. You know, they often feel like they have clout because there is a consensus around them. You know, lots of practitioners are like, yeah, I like this. Yeah, this means something. This matters. We're looking at this right now. You know, we can feel that there is a lot of importance from all agreeing that something is big. That's how I felt about sigil magic. When I first started doing sigil magic, I was like, okay, this is something that pretty much every practitioner that does it agrees is big. And it is big. It's a great form of magic. It means a lot to me. But there's also these things that I've invented that are just purely from where I'm coming from and who I am, that I never read in any book. And those things also count. It's the same. They hold the same weight. Why not? Why not? I mean, something that is unique and personal to you it's just got this stamp on it that nothing else can really give you. You have this massive internal world. You have a completely unique bank of memories. You have astral locations and real locations that now exist on the astral in your imagination that are all important and are all places of power. So you get to decide what is truly of significance. You know, I think that's just so potent. It's something I come back to again and again, this notion that, like, I am a world builder as a witch. I am building a world, and I don't need to be concerned about the world that is being built over here or over here. This is my world, okay? I'm Willy Wonka and this is my chocolate factory. I think I just almost quoted Devil's Rejects, but not quite. But our Lord and Saviour Rob Zombie, forgive me, I'll have to rewatch the film. I can't remember the quote properly, but it is a banger. It has always really helped me to recognise that I get to choose my ingredients on very personal terms. And I can tap into something that's bigger, fine. But I also need to recognise that I am big, I am ginormous. I am this never-ending, once-in-a-lifetime thing, and so are you. I'm not just talking about me. I'm trying to you know, help you to maybe consider some of these mindsets if you need them. You know, your world building is important, not just the worlds that others have built before you. I have never been down Route 66, okay, but this is the house of an American, and I assume that's why this cup is here. But he's currently in America. And so I'm sat on his bed looking after his cat while he's away. Hi, Ian. I love you. The third mindset that I find really useful and that I have noticed over time is something that I keep coming back to. And so I want to share it with you. I've shared it with a few people recently who said that they found it very, very useful. So here I am sharing it with the whole internet. Arrogance is a useful thing. Arrogance can be quite a useful ingredient. Now, when I was younger, I used to notice that it was not helpful to me, and it didn't feel sexy, to be honest. It didn't feel glamorous to me to finish a spell and think, did that work? I hope that's going to work. It didn't feel right. I don't know whether or not it affected the magic. I'm assuming it did. I'd have to go back through my books of mirrors and books of shadows to really examine that, because I don't think I often noted down that I was having that thought. But it was a thought that would plague me. You know, did that work? I hope that worked. Did that work? I hope that worked. I never leave a spellcraft situation thinking that anymore. I think, it's done, what's next? Like, there's an arrogance to it, okay? I'm a cocky witch. I don't take that necessarily outside of sacred space. I don't walk around, you know, in my world, like with my chest puffed out and my shoulders pulled back, like, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. You peasants, you riffraff. You know, I don't necessarily walk around like that. But in sacred space, that's what's going on. I always think about Simone Biles, super, super important Olympic standard athlete, obviously. And Simone Biles often has a goat studded in crystals on her leotard. Why does she do that? Because she said that her haters in the past would say, oh, Simone Biles thinks she's the goat. She thinks she's the goat. She thinks she's the goat. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, Simone Biles is actually the GOAT, so I don't really know what her haters are drinking, but sounds interesting. But she decided that one day at competition time, she would have her leotard designed with a goat diamanted or crystalled or whatever on the side of it. I remember seeing that and thinking, that's how I need to be in the ring. And by in the ring, I mean in sacred space. I need to know I'm the GOAT. I need to know it. It's got to be right there, like, yes. I mean, like, who's going to fuck with me? Oh, Crowley, come back. I'll beat you. I'll beat your ass. It's that kind of arrogance. Yes, it's a good ingredient. It makes you really feel like, first of all, that the thing has worked, you know, because you can doubt and be insecure, and that gets you hung up and it stops you from doing other workings afterwards. First of all, the fear of feeling that way stops you from doing workings, which is no good. You got to do what you want to do in witchcraft. But then afterwards, you also feel like, oh, I better wait for that spell to work, and I need to know that my power is okay and my power is good before I can do something else. I want there to always be progress. I want to feel like this. Hang on, let me put my tea down. I want to feel like I finish a spell and I just go, all right, what's next on the agenda? You know, and I don't ever do magic or ritual or really much else, sort of witchcraft speaking, without that sincere feeling of like, well, I mean, let's look at my closing lines, right? Most of the time, and this is written in my book, Rebel Witch, most of the time I finish my spell and I say, this is the will of the witch's heart, therein let it be so. Or this is the will of a witch's heart, therein let it be so. In other words, what I'm saying is, because this is my will and I'm a witch, let it be done. It's done. It's already done. I'm confident of it. That just really helps. I just thought I'd throw that out there, okay? Go Simone Biles in your sorcery, okay? We want Simone sorcery. If you Google Simone Biles goat and you go to the Google images, currently right now there is one of my favourite of her many goats that she has on her leotard. It's on her back. She's got a white leotard on, and on the back she's got a goat surrounded by this big orange explosion of light. It looks very occultic. It looks super esoteric, guys. We all know the symbolism of the goat anyway, right? So that just helps it along. And it's one of my favourites, one of my favourite goat leotard moments for Simone Biles. And sometimes when I go into sacred space, I imagine such a thing on my back, right? Burning into my back. Not in a bad way, but just in an astrally beautiful way. It's just that feeling of like, put your head high, know that you're a goddamn practitioner and this is what the fuck is going to happen next, you know. Be cocky, just be a little bit cocky. I don't even know what I'm talking about now. I hope you get my point, all right? Do you get my point? Comment down below if anyone gets my point about arrogance being quite a useful tool for getting the shit done and moving on and doing the next thing and feeling like things are moving. And you will see that it helps. It really helps. It helps me to do more powerful magic when I just go in with that sense of like, and now here is where I am the fucking Don. No one tells me what to do here. I know what I'm doing here. So stand well back because mother's about to do something. You know, that's kind of how I approach magic these days. Darlings, if you're anything like me, then you love online learning. You love taking yourself through the different steps of a course and feeling like you come out the other side having challenged and inspired yourself, and hopefully you're thinking differently and you're more motivated. Skillshare is the sponsor for this video, and they are an amazing, varied online learning platform, and they offer video courses on all kinds of different things, from personal branding, time management, video marketing, illustration, design, cooking, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of different things on there that really echo the themes that I look at with my channel. There's so many excellent courses on there. You can check out courses about creativity. I think there's a lot of creativity in making magic, so I wanted to highlight a couple of great creativity courses this time. The first one is by Alison Keeler, and it's Everyone is Creative. This course will help you own your creative power and show up for yourself as a creative individual. It comes with a worksheet I highly recommend. And I also wanted to talk about Rich Armstrong's course, The Perfect 100-Day Project. This really shows you how to choose and execute the perfect 100-day creative journey for yourself, with all the inspiration there that you need. If you want to check out Skillshare free for a month and have access to all the classes and really just see some improvement in whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you can click the link down below. If you're one of the first 1,000 people to do so, you get to sign up for a free 1-month trial. Just give it a go and see what you think. By the way, honey bunnies, I've noticed that the way that the light is in this video is really putting emphasis on my little scar right here. This is just where I've slept and everything's just gone like this, but this is actually a scar. Where is it? I have to sit back to see it. Maybe you can't see it in the video, I don't know, but like I've noticed that it's very prevalent. I got that scar when I was 1 year old because there was a lump of fat in my forehead and it was moving slowly towards my eye. So my parents, in their wisdom, decided to take me to the doctor, who said that if I didn't have it taken out, I would go blind in one eye. So thank you, Mum and Dad, for being observant of my lumpy bumpy head. Okay, moving on. Belief in your power is vital. That's the fourth mindset, you know, that I really have recognized over time is so important. I try not to rely overly on bringing in spirits and gods and asking for help and calling in all this backup, I invite my deities and my cosmological family, my astral ancestors, you know, I invite them to be present while I'm doing a working or a ritual. But I'm not calling on them for help necessarily. Why is that? Because I don't like the notion of over-reliance on other, bigger, majestic, like rolling energies, you know, in the cosmos, because I like to think of myself as one as well. I think that that's important for me. I'm not saying that you should not like evoke deities to, you know, bring in and do your thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't invite gods and ask them to be a part of your craft if that's what you do. But for me personally, that was part of what it meant for me to really connect with this notion that my power is there and I myself am a powerful instrument. You know, I think that's one of the key reasons that witchcraft is so feared and so misunderstood and so despised by Christians, because of this notion that you yourself have the power, you yourself can fucking do something, that you are not actually always a supplicant to this higher thing who does things or does not do things for you, but this notion that you yourself are in fact somewhat of a god, darling. Are we going back to point 3 about arrogance? I don't know. So yeah, basically belief in my power was important. And for me, that meant recognizing that I could do something just nakedly alone without feeling like I needed to ask for anything. In fact, the energy of asking is something that I don't find that useful. You know, going back to point 3 about arrogance, the energy of telling, the energy of execution of the thing, not like guillotining people. Although, you know, that has its place. Kellyanne, focus. Okay, sorry, I told you I was in a weird mood. So yeah, basically that energy of like, it's done. That's it. Because I fucking say so. Because I say so. That energy, that belief that I myself can do that has always been very important for me. I think it's important to witness where you feel in your life that you are struggling with the sense of power and look at that as well. And I don't want to go too far into that because I want to keep things magical and witchy in this video. This is not like me going off into other territory necessarily, but I have looked at whereabouts I feel powerless in my reality. And I have tried to do what I can to remedy that because, you know, as above, so below, as within, so without, you know, so wherever I'm witnessing powerlessness or at least perceived powerlessness in my external reality, I will try to look at that, remedy that, question that, change that, deconstruct that maybe, because sometimes it just comes from the ego and the notion of powerlessness is not actually, there's not actually any evidence for it. It's more of a feeling. And so, you know, I've looked at my belief and how I can change my belief, how I can shift my belief about that powerlessness, because I think powerlessness can follow you into the circle, if you will. So I've looked at that as well. I just think that I have to believe that I myself can get the thing done. And I also have loved working with beings, and mostly for me nowadays, it's asking them to help me to understand something rather than it is for them to help me with a spell or for them to help me to change something. It's more about like, I'm a receptacle for their wisdom to enter me, for their stories to inspire me. I'm listening to them as a pupil would listen to a teacher. And that's been really righteous for me, there's no question. But I also always have to put the focus back on how much I have inside me and what is going on with me that is also matchless and vibrant and cosmic and big and gigantic. Don't sing Pixies. Gigantic, our big, big love. I'm sorry about this video. It's a shit show, but we're going to continue on, okay? Number 5, the training ground for your magic is absolutely anywhere. It's anywhere you can think of, you know? There's so many different arenas in life where you can test the bounds of your power and understand what it is that you can do and have fun with that and be interested in that. I remember the last full-time office job that I had before I went full-time doing what I do now was on a sales floor. And I always say that my last job was like Wolf of Wall Street with English accents. It kind of felt a bit like that. It was very different to the usual energy that I would be in, where I was in more of a customer service kind of role. A sales floor is a different ball game. Everybody's very hyped up. There's lots of energy. There's competition. There's sometimes a little bit of aggression, not in a violent way, but just energetically. And the more I was coming into doing this work and doing readings for people and stuff, the more I was tuning into people's energy as well. So when I first got to this sales floor, it was pretty overwhelming at times, you know, it was like really, it was very sort of absorbing, and I felt like I was losing myself in it. And I was working very closely with a team, and we would compete with other teams for the most sales during the day. We weren't doing anything really sketchy, by the way. We were selling card machines to small businesses. But that was kind of the environment that I was in. I started to do a lot of witchy work in this room, in this big office, where I was in this open plan office with all these other teams and this terrible manager that I spoke about in a live once. Some of you will remember Richard, the terrible manager. There's a story about that in one of my lives. So yeah, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go in and I'm going to practice enclothed cognition. So practice dressing for how I want to feel and the job that I want to do. I'm going to take in amulets and talismans and crystals and stuff. I'm going to use words of power before I leave the office and also when I arrive to the office. I'm going to do all these different things. I'm going to take a poppet in my pocket. I'm going to use worry dolls. I'm going to use all of this different stuff. And I'm going to experiment with how that affects me and how it affects my ability to do my job well. I also experimented with vibration elevation for the whole room. First of all, for the whole team, and then for the whole room. You know, I would experiment with different ways of bringing up the energy purely through doing what I was doing and holding the vibration that I was holding and seeing what worked. And I noticed myself shifting the vibration. And I've said this to witches before in private calls that I have with them. I'm a witchcraft mentor. You can find out about that down below. I'll leave the links to my witchy brainstorming sessions down below if you would like to have one with me. I've been a witchcraft mentor for quite a while. For those of you who don't know, I have written a book about the craft. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's called Rebel Witch, Carve a Craft That's Yours Alone. I am very sort of into this notion that you can test things out in terms of actually just shifting the vibe in a room. And I've said to witches before, have you not noticed that you've walked into a room and everybody's looking like they've got, you know, like they've just smelled shit and the vibe is not good and people are tense with each other. And just through virtue of you deciding that you're going to raise the energy, you've managed to raise it. You've managed to change things. You've managed to actually come in and mess with the calculation. And witches have been like, yeah, I can do that. I've done that many times. And I'm like, okay, well, a lot of people do not consciously experiment with this kind of thing. You know, it's something about your belief that energy is malleable, that even by just holding a certain vibration, by putting out a certain positive intention, not even by saying anything, not even by, you know, doing a funny dance to make everyone laugh, but just through holding a specific intention and a specific vibe, you can do something. And you can notice the effect that has on other people. It's not for any malicious intention. I wasn't coming in and like doing harmful spells on people. I was literally just thinking, okay, the vibe is crappy at work. How am I going to operate as a witch to experiment with what can be done there? And I found that really interesting. I saw my work as a training ground. I saw it as one big experiment. I saw it as a place where I could flex my witchy muscle. Number 6, witchcraft is self-developmental. Aside from any other reason that you would do it, this is a good fucking reason to do it, okay? You know, you've got your creativity that you're expanding and testing. You've got your unconscious mind that you're tapping into more and exploring. You are deconstructing your beliefs about yourself and what you can do and who you are and replacing them and playing with them and chopping and screwing them. You're stretching your beliefs. You're making sovereign decisions about what is going to happen next and why that's going to happen. You're doing all these different things that are having an effect on your sense of self in sublimely positive ways. And they're observable as well. You can actually watch how witchcraft is changing you and strengthening you and toughening you up or relaxing you into yourself. So aside from any other reason, that is a good reason to do it and to observe its results. I like noticing how witchcraft is stretching me and changing me and improving me. I like to witness that, and I like to give witchcraft its credit for doing that for me and doing that to me and doing that with me. If you don't even know why you're a witch or what you would witch for at this moment in time, or nothing is really making sense to you about it, or you're questioning it. I know a lot of people do go through phases where they question it. Just think of it as this incredible exercise in self-development, because that is really what it is. It's such an incredible way to like I said, test yourself, understand yourself, Be a better fucking version of yourself in the world. Even when I was a really young witchling and I started thinking about how I would like to use the craft to help other people, like what kind of intention I would like to put out to help the planet, to help people in my immediate circle, to help my wider community, to help a local tree. Like when I look back on that now, I don't think I witnessed in the moment when I was thinking that way how beautiful that is. But when I look back now in my late 30s at who I was in my teens, my early teens, thinking about what witchcraft could be used for, I was showing in that moment my great compassion. I was really sitting with the heart of me, with the care that I have, with the concern that I have for people and for things, and thinking about how I could utilize witchcraft in that way. And I know that a lot of young witches coming up now, like that are, you know, in their late teens, early 20s, they are really only thinking about how to use witchcraft for that. And I'm not saying you should only do that. I think that witchcraft should be also, if you want it to be, used to gain, to experience personal gain. I'm into that low magic shit, all right? Let's look at the money and the love and the work and the health. That's fine. But I think it's really poignant that witches want to think about witchcraft for activism, witchcraft for social change, witchcraft to send love and care and protection to the people in your immediate circle or the wider people in your society. I think that that shows your heart. So even in noticing what your motivations are sometimes for witchcraft, or how you want to stretch yourself with witchcraft, what you're interested in seeing happen, you can notice through noticing those things that you're a decent fucking person and that you are really thinking about what improvements could be made. How can you make things more beautiful? How can you make things fairer? You know, how can you make things calmer? How can you help people to develop too? You know, I just think there's so much beauty to be seen in who we are through how we utilize our craft. Mindset number 7 that's been supremely helpful to me and that I always try and keep in mind is that the imagination is a real place. The imagination is not only a real place, it's one of the most epic places that exists. When I say real, do I mean materially? No, but clearly it is a realm. Everything in this room was imagined before it was brought into manifestation. Every single thing popped into the imagination and was developed in the imagination. You know, we might have been visited by the muse, by an idea that just came to us, but then we had to also re-access the doorway to the imagination to figure out the specifics. It's a real place that we can access. This painting right here, what a beautiful painting that is. In fact, all of these images on this wall, they came into a person via the doorway of the imagination. And then that person maybe re-accessed the imagination to get the fine detail, you know? They decided to interact with the realm of the imagination. And now this thing is in material life. Now we can touch it. Now we can see its texture. Now it is sort of adorning somebody's room and giving people access to more imagination through doing that. Many things are imagined with absolutely no desire to manifest. I idly imagine things all the time. I've spoken about this in my video about the human shadow and my interest in the human shadow. At the end of that video, I talked about how many people are fearful that whatever they imagine is going to come to pass. And I think I made the point in that video that if that was the case, then Stephen King would be on trial. I certainly would want to be in the jury with that man on trial if everything you imagined could come to pass. You know, there's lots of things we idly imagine, but when you fervently attach will to that imagining and you do something to say, this is my will, things can happen and things can change. I see that as no different to imagining a possibility for a painting and then making that painting come true, because I have decided, yes, that is the thing that I really want to have come true. So for me, it's not just the imagining on its own that makes things happen. If it did, I would be in a lot of trouble. My ex's head would be on a spike. But it's not just the imagining, but it's the fervent application of will and discipline to that imagining. I believe that that counts. You know, so I always try to remember that the imagination is a real place. The imagination has weight. Every single novel that I have read that I hugely enjoyed, that was beautiful for me, comes from that place. Yes, it comes from the skill of the writer. No, I'm not saying anything about C.S. Lewis or Tolkien or lads, absolute boys. It's partly to do with their incredible talent, but also there is that extra element, like where do these things come from? And I know like someone in the comments is probably going to go, they just come from your brain, Kellyanne. They come from like electric firing in the brain that makes things happen. Okay, whatever. But for me, there's something divine behind that shit. That door in the back of that wardrobe that led to Mr. Tumnus and Aslan and everything, you can't tell me that that shit is not cosmic. It came from a cosmic place that was not real until it was imagined and put into reality on the page. And now it's in reality in endless, countless minds. It has a legacy that far exceeds what it was originally. And it's now bouncing around inside loads of different heads and giving birth to loads more stories. And it's giving birth to a sense of self. The White Witch informed my sense of self. Aslan informed my sense of self. They raised me, goddammit. Mindset number 8 that I think is useful and has been useful for me. Read and explore widely. I've definitely gone through stages in my time as a witch where I was obsessively reading witchcraft materials and I was constantly engaging with witchcraft content. And I kind of forgot during those times that, you know, it can be cyclical. Okay, I've had several witches say to me recently in witchy brainstorming sessions that they're frustrated and they don't know where to go because they feel like a lot of witchcraft texts include the same things, which even though they may be excellently written, they do contain the same things. My own book contains material that is contained in many other books, okay? That's just the nature of it. There's not endless things that you can say about the actual mechanics of the craft. The mechanics of the craft are what they are. And you have to break that down for people that don't know, and then the people that do know feel like they're reading the same stuff over and over again. In my book, I tried to, you know, be as colourful as possible and as fruity as possible with what I was saying. But essentially, yeah, I had to break down how a spell works, you know, I had to break down the difference between a spell and a ritual. I had to do all that stuff. So I didn't have to, but, you know, it's my first book. I want to lay some groundwork before I go into fruitier, wilder things, okay? And I wanted to be able to take everybody with me with Rebel Witch. I didn't want to leave anybody behind. I didn't want to leave a man behind, okay? So I did it that way. So my own book contains repeated material. For me, it's about going off-piste. It's about going where you don't necessarily associate immediately with witchcraft, you know? It's about like getting into specific types of art. Like for me, for the last few years, I've really been working with abstract expressionism in my magic. I've been using it for scrying and divination, which has been really interesting. I've been using it as an astral doorway, a way to access the astral. I've been using it to get signs and synchronicities. I've also been heavily invested in researching some of the major players in the classic period of abstract expressionism. Talking to you, Motherwell, talking to you, Pollock. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of that stuff. For me, abstract expressionism is intensely witchy. When I stand in the Gerhard Richter room in the Tate Modern and I look into those paintings, something else is happening to me. I don't know what's going on with everybody else around me, but to me, those canvases are absolutely sacred. They are doorways. I bring something back with me from looking at those paintings. Oh, it's giving me goosebumps. So something witchy is happening when I'm applying myself to the study and the appreciation of abstract expressionism. You're not going to read that in any witchy book. It's not going to be, you're not going to open up a book and see, you know, a Rothko painting. You should do. Maybe I'll write a book one day where I'm like, right, look into this hole in this Rothko painting and go down the rabbit hole, go down the Rothko hole, okay? Trust me. There's a permanent Rothko room at the Tate Modern as well, and I'm in London right now and I really may have to go. I may have to have a little visit because they've got benches in there so you can actually sit down and stare into a Rothko for a good 25 minutes, and it does something to the soul. I know there's a lot of debate about Rothko, but he's my boy. So, you know, I think anything like that where you specialise, you know, can become witchy. You might feel incredibly witchy about a specific video game, you know? You might feel incredibly witchy about Dungeons and Dragons. I was talking to a client the other day about Dungeons and fucking Dragons, right? I have never played it. Literally up until my 30s, I thought it was a computer game. I didn't realise that it wasn't a computer game. I didn't know what it was. I just assumed it was a fucking computer game. As I've learned more and more and more about D&D, I think that is an insanely witchy thing to be spending your time doing. I got obsessed with reading about the rules of it and everything, and I was like, oh wow, this is magical. No wonder people are total D&D obsessed, you know? So this is the point I'm making, right? Like anything, your attitude towards cooking, your attitude towards vintage cars, like read widely, explore deeply, go beyond, specialize, don't remain a generalist. If you're frustrated by the witchcraft resources, don't look at things with the word witchcraft on them at all. Apply the attitude of witchcraft to whatever you want to specialize in. And yes, it could be herbalism. Yes, it could be runes. You know, yes, it could be any number of things that you would read about in a 101 book or in a witchcraft book, but you would have to specialize in books about that thing to get that meat off the bone. But you also can do it with anything, as I have with abstract expressionism, you know. So yeah, I think that's something that I would say. Read widely, go further, go outwards. That's been a really useful mindset for me. And not telling myself that it's the choice between reading witchcraft resources and focusing on my witchcraft, or looking at this over here and focusing on that. No, I'm applying the attitude of witchcraft over here, looking at that, and therefore it becomes witchy inherently. Attitude number 9, mindset number 9, that has really helped me personally. Extremes are not always necessary. I'm quite an extreme person for several reasons, okay? It's to do with my birth chart. It's to do with my mental health stuff. It's to do with my upbringing. It's to do with the attitudes of my parents and what they instilled in me. And further to that, my parents' mental health stuff. It's to do with a lot of shit, all right? It's just how I'm made. I can be an extreme person. My friend said to me a little while ago, I was on the phone with her and I said, well, you know, I was feeling a bit angry about it. And she said, Kelly, you're never just a bit of any emotion. When you're feeling an emotion, you're feeling that emotion. I have never seen you be a bit angry. And I could not argue because she does not lie. She also lives here and she is a witch too. And so it's beautiful to be around all her witchy things. I just love it. She literally got books on mythology by the bedside. I mean, come on, what a beautiful place to stay for a while. So yeah, she said that to me and I could not lie, right? That's how extreme I am, that a friend would actually interrupt me to be like, no, you do things to the extreme. And it's true. I'm very enthusiastic, be that for a positive thing or a negative thing. I'm just very enthused. I'm extremely zesty as a person. And when I go hard. I therefore have witnessed that it's been really good for my growth to recognize that there is no necessity for that in magic. It's great to go all out sometimes, you know. It's great to go super flowery, have a ritual with 30 different steps in it. Just do something big, do something that takes several days, you know, like really plan it all out or invest in it big time. I've also experimented over the years with chemognosis, you know, the notion of getting to that altered state, that magical state, that state of possibility through chemical alteration of your body, right? Through ingesting something, through having a little dance with a sacramental mushroom to get your, you know, aims met. I have done that. I've done that for many years. I have a very interesting dynamic relationship with substances in that way. But also I've noted that like there's so much control and sturdiness and foundational useful simplicity in not going all out and not feeling like the extremes are where it's at. Not always. I mean, I do believe William Blake when he said the road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom. But I really wish I could balance that out with another quote about simplicity and how good that is. I can't think of one right now, but it's probably by Marcus Aurelius anyway. But, you know, like, I've also recognized that there is so much sturdiness and so much control and so much of a lack of margin for error when you don't go for the extremes of any spectrum, you know? I am very like, I'm going to drop acid and do this, or I'm going to fast for 3 days and do this. It's like, there's this lovely area in the middle. There's this lovely chill area in the middle where you have a lot of control. I think Peter J. Carroll, the father of chaos magic, said that chemognosis is actually not that reliable or predictable. It's often extremely unuseful. I don't necessarily agree with that so much. I think there's a whole journey to go on with that, and that's a different video, one that I probably wouldn't upload to YouTube, to be honest. Maybe I'll treat my Patreon family to it at some point because I think it needs a bit of privacy. But I think there's a whole debate that can be had on that. But essentially, I get his point. His point is that the more variables you introduce, the more complicated the flavour of the soup is going to be, until you're not really sure what the flavour is anymore. And the more margin there is for other things to come in or to be of concern, or other roads to be visible to you that actually aren't useful, because you're really trying to do a spell. You're really trying to apply yourself to something specific. And so in order to be specific, you probably need to be grounded, compos mentis, well fed, well slept if possible, you know, in order to make a meal of it, make a thing of it. So for me personally, and this might not be a mindset that's even useful to other people, I might be, you know, I might be listened to right now by a lot of people who don't have a problem with going to extremes, you know, but to me, it's been useful for me even to witness that I do not need to be in my extreme emotion to do a spell. You know, there's definitely been areas in my path, like areas in my times in my practice, should I say, where I felt like I need to have the overwhelming sadness in me to do the spell, or I need to have the overwhelming, like, deep anger in order to utilize it for the spell. You know, and I've been worried about not feeling enough, not being in the feeling enough to be able to do the spell. Actually, it's kind of useful sometimes if you just remain cool, calm, clear, and under control, and do it from that point of view. I think Phil Hine wrote at one point, sorry, I know, like, I go back to quote, I know there's other people that write about chaos magic, okay, but I'm too busy specialising in other shit to really, like, pay major concern to what the next big thing is in chaos magic, to be honest. But I know I quote Phil Hine and Peter J. Carroll all the time, and I have done for years. But I'm pretty sure Phil Hine has something called the third method of gnosis alongside excitatory and inhibitory, and it's something like the indifferent method, the nonchalant method. He talks about how one good way to reach the state of concentration to do a spell is to be slightly whatever about it. I think he said something like, imagine that you're listening to a talk that you have to make notes on, but you're not really interested in it. So you have to be concentrated on it, but you're really not bothered about it. It's just something that you've got to get through to get your degree, type of thing. That nonchalant kind of like, whatever, blasé type of attitude towards magic. I think that third method is really interesting because it takes the pressure off and it just makes you a bit like, So yeah, I think that is a really good example by the Mac Daddy Phil Hine on how to not feel that you need to land in the extremes of something in order to be a great practitioner. The 10th and final mindset that has been very useful for me is have somewhere to land. And what I mean by that is be gentle with yourself when you've done a spell or you've been in ritual or you've been surfing the astral, you know. Make sure that you've got something in consensus reality that you want to come back to, like some delicious pistachio ice cream or a cartoon or a nice walk through the neighborhood or whatever, or maybe a nice WhatsApp voice note chat with a friend, you know, something that will nicely and safely land you. This is of particular importance to me because in the past I have suffered with psychosis. In fact, I dealt with early onset psychosis in my teens. I have a diagnosis that partly pertains to psychosis. I haven't dealt with it for a very long time. In fact, recently my therapist has been discussing the fact that she thinks my diagnosis has changed on a fundamental level. And I can't really argue with her there. I've been pretty, you know, stable in terms of the psychosis part for quite a long time. But I've always been very responsible with myself, with my chemonosis, with the amount of time I spend in trance or on the astral, all those things, because I have a responsibility to my brain. I know that I have been psychotic before. I'm going to leave a video down below. I think it's called How Much Witchcraft is Too Much, or When Should You Stop Doing Witchcraft? And I'm going to leave another video down below called Does witchcraft affect your mental health? I can't remember what it's called, but there are two videos that I want to leave down below for anybody who wants to explore more on my ideas around this and my thoughts on it, because I do think witchcraft can be dangerous in terms of mental well-being. I do think that you need to have stability outside of the craft and interests outside of the craft, really, especially if you have a history with things like I have a history of, okay, where I could not leave the Mad Hatter's tea party and the March Hare was chatting shit in my ear and the White Rabbit was running past and I was like, I don't know where my front door is and I want to die, okay? So yes, you want to be able to exit the rabbit hole. And so for me, it's been really useful to recognize that giving myself good, sturdy places to land, being as constantly in love with the mundane as possible, those things matter. It is particularly difficult to be in consensus reality. I think that for a lot of people, it's overwhelming, it's daunting, it's sad. There's lots of really sad things happening, and we have more access to 15 tabs full of the bad shit that's happening than we ever had before. We are constantly being able to take in all of the difficulty and the badness that's happening. It's not like in the past where a town crier would come and tell you basically what's happening in your territory and maybe the next territory. Now it's like you can see all the time the shit that big companies are dumping in the ocean, all of this stuff that's happening, the wars that are happening, everything, okay? And I'm not suggesting we switch off to that, but I'm suggesting that we also witness the majesty, the beauty, the comfort, the good things that are happening, the species that are being saved from the extinction, the developments that are being made in science, the beautiful things that are happening in art, the community stuff that's happening that's really gorgeous and really good, any progress that is being made. And I'm also suggesting that that gives you a soft landing when you come back from these beautiful, magical, ritual experiences. I personally feel that it's important to come back to something that feels good. Something that feels good. A blanket, a nice meal, a film I enjoy, some good tea, just simple things, not things that cost a lot of money, not things that would require me to buy something I didn't have before, but just things that are going to make me feel like, oh, there's also majesty here. You know, and I know that a lot of people watching my channel, you already really believe in not separating the magic, the magical from the mundane in terms of what has significance and what is beautiful and what can be informative and what can be significant. But I'm saying that for me, having a soft place to land when I'm not in witch mode, I mean, I'm always have the witch mindset, but when I'm not witching, having a soft place to land is important. Giving myself stable ground is important. Being sturdy in myself and in my body is important. Taking care of the first home, the first and the last home, this meat suit. Darlings, thank you so much for listening to my big witchy TED Talk. I appreciate it. I hope you come back again soon. If you want to watch other videos from me, there are loads of other videos from me. If you want to work with me, I don't think I'm that expensive. Check it out, get booked into my schedule. I've got everything now on my schedule until I think mid-July. So there's lots of different slots for you to book. The weekend slots do get filled up quicker, okay? So if you see a weekend slot and you know you want it, book me. I do work a lot of nights of the week. I work until 11:30 p.m. and that is for my peeps on the west coast of the US, okay? And I start work at 10 a.m. So yeah, just, you know, get at me if you want to work with me. If you have questions, you can email me at mail@kelly-and-maddox.com. You can find the email in the description. Please title your email Client Query so I can make sure that I try and prioritize it above the mountain of other stuff that comes into my inbox. Thank you so much. Thank you to Skillshare again for sponsoring the video. Thank you to my glamorous assistant, the man badger Danny, for editing this video. I hope you enjoy it. Leave your comments down below as always. Check out my Patreon if you want to come and have other content from me, printables, Discord access, regular monthly video with a 1-card reading in it. Come on now. I mean, what could be better? Go down and check that below if you have budget for that. Until next time, much love. And as always, my darlings, as always, I don't care how retro it becomes, blessed be. Mwah.